Ugh. If you haven't seen my East Blue video yet, you can check it out here. It's okay, I'll wait. I also touched on what I already knew about the series, but to give a general summary, I did watch the 4Kids dub of East Blue. And again, this isn't going to be some deep dive analysis, just a little journal of my thoughts as I progress through the series. I have some vague memories past East Blue, but yeah, this will basically be a blind review from here on out, and essentially my first experience of the Grand Line. So let's dive into the Alabasta saga. So fresh out of Logtown, we set course for the Grand Line. Finally, let's go. Even though it's helmed as this ocean of legends, it never even crossed my mind the possible difficulty of even just entering it. So Nami explains the only entry point is by sailing up a mountain residing on the Red Line, which is a ginormous strip of land that wraps the entire globe. Nami basically goes on to say that there are streams that run up to the peak of this mountain for each of the 4 primary seas, all converging to a single stream downward which leads to the Grand Line. Even though the answer to my question was probably on the next page, I literally put my book down and just pondered for a moment, just completely confused. Because I'm thinking, as Zoro himself ends up saying, why not just sail south until we're in the Grand Line? No? Like, are there perimeters put up by the Marines? Some kind of border patrol type deal? So apparently, the Grand Line is actually cushioned by another sea called the Calm Belt. Here, the infamously treacherous weather conditions of the Grand Line are absent, but to the extremity there's zero wind for the sails to pick up. So you're basically stranded. Well, why not just row through the Calm Belt then? It doesn't matter, Chief, because these calm weather conditions have resulted in it becoming an optimal nesting ground for Sea Kings. The mountain makes sense now. Just listen to Nami. Entering Reverse Mountain itself wasn't a joke either, but it beats... yeah. So the Straw Hats finally enter the Grand Line and were immediately met with a mini arc of sorts. To explain how little I recall anything post East Blue, I can recite Cook It Up anytime anywhere, no questions asked. I have zero recollection of Laboon, which would essentially be a couple of episodes later. We meet the lighthouse keeper of Reverse Mountain who shares the story of this whale, Laboon. It basically follows the Hachiko dog story, and I'm just thinking, damn it, like we basically set a toe into the Grand Line and I'm already getting teary-eyed over a 4-chapter arc. Just stop. This didn't make it into my One Piece cry counter, but it was close. We also get introduced to Miss Wednesday, who ends up being really important, but I'll touch on her in the next arc. Before we move on though, one thing I just wanted to quickly mention is the log pose, because I just loved its application as a means of world building in an extremely foundational level. Just as the crew is about to set sail, Nami realizes her compass is completely disoriented. Through Crocus, the lighthouse keeper, we basically learned that aside from the weather and the sea currents constantly changing, the Grand Line is home to abnormal geomagnetic forces, due to each island being extremely rich in various minerals. The only way to navigate through the Grand Line is with a special compass that records magnetic fields, called a log pose. Each island hosts their own magnetic field, and one must record the interaction between paired islands to be directed to the next. From Reverse Mountain, there's 7 magnetic fields to pick from, but no matter which route is taken, all paths eventually converge to the last island, Raftel, the final island of the Grand Line. In all of history, only a single group of seafarers have managed to sail this far, the crew of the Pirate King. As Crocus says himself, Raftel is the stuff of legend. This is hype. Following the log pose, the Straw Hats make their way to their first island, Whiskey Peak. And hey, I said I wanted more bounty hunters and we get 100 straight away. One Piece keeps impressing me with how unique each fight is. The strategy and traversal here was really cool to see, and after Zoro's prior fight where he had to deal with his extreme handicap, I enjoyed Oda basically reminding me what the pecking order is. So these bounty hunters belong to a secret organization called Baroque Works, and we get acquainted with some of their highest ranking members. These agents work in pairs, with male agents given numbered codenames and female agents given weekday and holiday codenames. From what I can gather, there's no system with the female titles, whereas with male agents, a lower number corresponds with being higher in the chain of command. Amidst all this commotion, a few of the top agents meet and it becomes apparent that a mole has infiltrated their ranks. That's gonna be confusing. It becomes apparent a spy has infiltrated their ranks. Mr. 8 and the aforementioned Miss Wednesday are outed as the royal guard and princess of the kingdom of Alabasta. Basically, Alabasta is in the middle of a civil war which is being puppeteered in the shadows by Baroque Works. In turn, Princess Vivi infiltrated their ranks to uncover what was truly happening, but was only able to uncover the identity of their leader, codenamed Mr. Zero. Isn't this a pirate manga? I can't imagine Luffy and the crew not helping Vivi as it stands anyways, but it becomes unavoidable when Vivi accidentally reveals Mrs. Zero's identity to the Straw Hats and they get put onto the Baroque Works hit list. That reaction was sensible, by the way, because it's revealed that Mrs. Zero is Sir Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. After seeing what Mihawk was capable of, I seriously didn't expect the Straw Hats to have to fight a warlord so early in their journey. Yeah, maybe a little cameo like Mihawk, but I'm thinking at this point like, for this saga to conclude, Luffy's gonna have to beat this guy. How? So the Straw Hats begin escorting Vivi back to Alabasta, and the log poser's first stop is an island called Little Garden. Again, some cool detailing I enjoyed. The flora and fauna here are gigantic, and it's possible due to the Grand Line's extremely varied and unstable conditions. The potential of the Grand Line seems limitless, and I'm so keen to explore future islands. We get introduced to our third humanoid species, which are the Giants. Warriors of Elbaf. 100 million bounty each, guys. Like, damn, the Grand Line doesn't play. You know, just 2 godlike beings casually existing with higher bounties than a warlord. Just casually locked in a century-long stalemate. Just, you know, whatever. I really enjoyed Little Garden for a bunch of reasons. We get some really funny moments, the exploration was great, and I think it serviced Baroque Works really well, giving them more substance as well as making them actually imposing with the introduction of Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week. Because let's be real, Reverse Mountain and Whiskey Peak didn't give the strongest impression of Baroque Works, and they felt more like obstacles Oda made to show off his dynamic duo. But the main reason I enjoyed this arc was how it better established Usopp's dream. You know, Usopp, I love the guy, but he definitely had the weakest and more importantly the vaguest dream, that being his desire to become a brave warrior of the sea. Since it's so abstract compared to something tangible or measurable like the rest of the crew, it was cool to essentially have his ambition visualized. He dreams to become as honorable and fearless as these giants with the addition of a tangible goal of visiting Elbaf someday. After getting an eternal post Alabasta, we finally set a straight course for Vivi's kingdom. But again, the Grand Line sucker punches the Straw Hats as Nami falls into a fever caused by a parasitic bite. I really like this plot thread and enjoy any adversity that mirrors what real-life seafarers face. For example, I love the sequences where the crew navigates the ship through impossible weather patterns, or even quieter moments where Usopp's repairing the ship or someone's manning the night shift. The crazy fantastical moments are cool too, but I appreciate how Oda doesn't forget that at its core, this is a story about pirates. So the crew has to make a detour to find Nami a doctor, basically searching for any island they can find. We set anchor at Drum Island, somewhat familiar to me, and it becomes apparent that the sole doctor of this entire island resides at the peak of the Rockies. Of course she does. One Piece does start to lean into its infamous weird designs, and while I may prefer it to occasionally be toned down, I think it helped paint the picture of the Grand Line just being this otherworldly place. Also considering there's apparently over 1,000 named characters, it doesn't hurt having some varied designs, I guess. It's unfortunate that the main villain of this arc was so lackluster because every other aspect of this arc was so solid. We get an ominous tease of a pirate named Blackbeard. He sounds important. We get our first glimpse of Ace. There's a huge reveal that kind of supports my Gold Roger theory, or Gold D. Roger theory. The journey to and the climb up the Drum Mountains was one of my favorite parts of the entire series so far. So after Luffy carried Nami and Sanji all the way up the mountain, Nami got the treatment she needed. So Chopper. Having seen this character before, it never even crossed my mind why Chopper is the way that he is, because One Piece is just that strange. Blends in pretty well, seems plausible. But apparently he was a normal reindeer that ate the human fruit, making him a reindeer-human hybrid. And this guy's backstory, man. People weren't kidding about One Piece backstories because somehow it manages to keep outdoing itself. I'm always blindsided by how Oda manages to make me care about characters in such a short span of time like he did with Dr. Hirolark. How it plays with metaphors of sickness and the definition of death all harmonize really well with the rest of the arc. And yeah, I was keen to discover the dreams of future crewmates, and Choppers didn't let me down in the slightest. Even with all my issues with Wapol, which includes his fight sequences, I feel like Oda didn't care for Drum Island's narrative to be dependent on the action anyway, basically just providing a sample size to fill the requirements of a shonen battle manga, not even showcasing a tight duel. No one's biting their nails over this, but that's not required to deliver this story, if that makes sense. It was more of an internal battle of self-reflection for Chopper, truly discovering what he desires, and with a little push from Luffy, chasing it. I didn't think it was possible to adamantly love an arc where I despise the antagonist, but Drum Island managed to do that for me. So we get our first Grand Line crewmate in Chopper, and we finally... Is that okay? Alright, we finally make our way to Alabasta. Meanwhile, Mr. Zero, or Sir Crocodile, is sinking his claws deeper into Vivi's kingdom, gaining more confidence from its citizens by the day. I didn't elaborate on what the 7 Warlords of the Sea are in my previous video because I probably don't need to tell you. I pray there isn't anyone using my videos to experience One Piece for the first time. But since it's plot relevant here, basically the 7 warlords are a collection of pirates allied with the world government. It seems like the warlords can do almost whatever they want, but I don't think they're allowed to develop a secret organization to manipulate a civil war and attempt a coup to overthrow a country that has a seat with the world government. That's just my humble guess though. Crocodile's latest publicity stunt came through making quick work of some raiding pirates. And when I say quick work, guys, I mean in an instant. Kinda reminiscent of Hawkeye's Galleon Slice introduction. These warlords don't play. Also, I love the dynamic that the chance encounter between the Straw Hats and Mr. 2 added. By recording the faces of the Straw Hats with his clone fruit powers, Mr. 2 just created a new dimension of danger to this arc, as well as some insight to the type of deception Baroque Works may have been up to when it's revealed that Mr. 2 has King Cobra's face recorded as well. The Straw Hats tag themselves to counteract the clone fruit and finally dock at Alabasta. So we don't get Buggy in Alabasta, but we do get Smoker, and Luffy's brother Ace, Pork Ass D Ace. I'm getting the sense that the D initial is important. I'm talking in the first minute of Alabasta, Luffy ends up in a marine chase. He gets saved by Ace, who fends off Smoker, a character that Luffy can't even touch, so he's pretty legit. Also strangely, he's not a captain but a crew member of the Whitebeard Pirates. I don't know, I thought that was interesting. He gives Luffy a little piece of paper, probably going to be some mind-blowing thing in 1,000 chapters or something, and then he goes about his way. More maps, let's go! So Vivi and the Straw Hats make their way to the Rebellion's hideout, located in an oasis called Yuba. And by the way, the clothing changes between arcs is really sick. Meanwhile, we're introduced to the rest of the high-ranking Baroque Works agents, including Mr. 1. They've all assembled to be introduced to their boss, Mr. Zero. Appropriate reaction. And with the final mission laid out to the agents, a collision course with the Straw Hats is basically imminent. As the Straw Hats inch their way to Yuba to stop the war, Vivi begins to detail how this war even came to be. It essentially started years ago when Alabasta suffered a severe drought, except for the capital city of Alabasta, where King Cobra lives. Initially believed to be the king's miracle, after cargo headed for the capital fell off its wheels, it becomes apparent Alabasta was receiving dance powder. It's basically a powder that creates artificial rain, the only problem being it essentially steals neighboring moisture in order to function, hence war ignited against the king. If it wasn't already clear, this whole war was actually orchestrated by Crocodile from the shadows, eventually positioning himself as a champion of the people. By the time they reach Yuba, it's become another victim of the harsh conditions, resulting in the rebels relocating. All residents abandoned it as well, except one villager, Toto, who never stopped believing in the king and refused to bow to the sand, searching for any trace of remaining water. Toto is the father of Koza, who long ago, despite being a commoner, was a childhood friend of Vivi. Koza loved his country and aspired to help it flourish by building Yuba, which would eventually act as a crossroad between major cities, allowing Alabasta to thrive. Fast forward after everything that's transpired, we learn that Koza is the leader of the rebels. Alabasta had a great collection of short and sweet flashbacks compared to the large singular flashbacks we're used to, and it helped keep the story flowing at a satisfying pace. Considering these flashbacks are trying to cover a nation-sized amount of content compared to the more intimate flashbacks we're familiar with, I think this was a great choice to not let the content become overwhelming. The Straw Hats call it a night, and again, just highlighting these small moments, it just blows my mind how good this is because I've never seen so much chemistry in a cast of characters before. So Toto gifts Luffy some of the water he was able to dig up, and the Straw Hats depart, turning their objective to Crocodile, who should be situated nearby. The rain-based segment was really fun. Honestly, just having the Straw Hats and Smoker detained in the same prison was exciting to read. It's such a prevalent trope in manga to have opposing sides work together in a way, but if you're asking me, I can't get enough of this stuff. Basically, through Crocodile's supervillain exposition, we learn he was the one responsible for sending sandstorms to Yuba in an attempt to agitate and drive out the rebels and force their hands. This bastard. So more factions aside from just the Straw Hats start to realize there's some foul play here. Intel also reaches the Royal Army, and while the rebel forces are still in the dark, Koza clearly has reservations and isn't some trigger-happy idiot. He's still holding out for a peaceful resolution. After Smoker escapes, he shifts his pursuit away from the Straw Hats and towards Baroque Works. I feel like Oda's depiction of the Marines being this crooked and one-dimensional system was purposely designed to emphasize Smoker's journey breaking out of that and discovering his own sense of justice, even going so far as to not command his assistant Tashigi, but telling her to do what she feels is justice in this situation. Meanwhile, the king's gone missing and has reportedly been seen at the rebel base in Katoria. Huh? So Baroque Works has executed the final leg of their mission by kidnapping then impersonating King Cobra with Mr. 2's clone powers. The king confesses to his crimes and creates havoc, harming rebels and citizens alike. Koza has no choice now. The rebels must push for the capital, and with the main pacifist of the kingdom missing, Alabasta prepares for war. Guys, the amount of moving pieces and factions in this saga is actually insane. Especially after somewhat of a straightforward storytelling style in East Blue, Oda drops us into this crazy Civil War epic filled to the brim with complex character studies and beautiful symbolism. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? So Vivi and the crew race to Alabasta while Luffy stays behind to handle Crocodile. After Smoker introduced the sea prison weapon that nullifies devil fruits, I thought that was going to be the key to defeating Crocodile here. But to cut it short, guys, even including Zoro's loss to his respective warlord, I have never seen such a horrific defeat. Not even being able to land a single blow against his sand body. Luffy tallies his first loss of the series. He is eventually rescued by Crocodile's partner, Miss All Sunday, due to her fascination with people whose name is D. I mean, he still has a gaping hole in his chest, but at least for the meantime, Luffy's alive. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats reach Alabasta and they're met by the Baroque Works agents. They split up to keep the agents busy while Vivi tries to intercept the war. Her last chance is sabotage when a Baroque Works soldier disguised as a royal guard sends an unauthorized cannon strike onto the rebels. If there were any chance of negotiation, it's gone now. And with the strike acting as a smokescreen, the rebels obliviously march past Vivi and war ensues. This was so excruciating to read. Usopp swings by to pick up Vivi, but considering the whole Mr. 2 thing, she asks to prove his identity. Usopp displays his tag, but Vivi somehow still knows he's an imposter and bolts. We get a flashback showing the crew arriving at Alabasta, and it's explained that the tag is a double bluff, the true identifier being an unraveling of the bandage revealing an X. I'm surprised that it wasn't Sanji or Usopp that came up with that. The final fights all serve the main cast really well. This seems to be a saga concluding formula where all crew members get a dedicated battle. Nami received a huge level up with her weather themed weapon, and easily my favorite fight of the series so far is Zoro vs Mr. 1. Vivi just needs her voice heard to stop the bloodshed, but even Kozo waving a white flag after discovering Crocodile's deception isn't enough. With more Baroque Works antics and Crocodile's sandstorms to create confusion, the war rages on. No one can hear Vivi's plea and all seems lost. With help from Pell, Luffy finally joins the fight. By drenching his fists in water, Crocodile can't dissolve into sand. Luffy can fight now. Not only did Crocodile steal the rain to fabricate a war, he also fears it. There's so many beautiful allegories at play here, and by using the water, it felt like Toto's philosophy was fighting alongside Luffy. But eventually when Luffy runs out of water, he loses again. I'm trying to recall a single manga where a protagonist repeatedly loses to the same character within the same arc. Alabasta did a great job with preserving the reputation of the Warlord title. I feel like many authors struggle with honouring highly touted characters or factions, especially when faced with the dilemma of wanting your main characters to look good. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I still fear these guys even at the arc's closure. While Luffy's knocked out, Baroque Works forces King Cobra to reveal the whereabouts of an ancient relic called a poneglyph. Apparently Miss All Sunday's entire purpose as an agent is to decipher the text on these stones, with the one in Alabasta citing the location of an ancient weapon called Pluton, Crocodile's ultimate goal. Miss All Sunday, for some reason, maybe sincere benevolence, deceives Crocodile by suggesting there's no reference of Pluton in the poneglyph. So her usefulness is over. Luffy comes to his senses and runs into Tashigi. Luffy asks where Crocodile went, and much like Smoker, her sense of justice is tested. Just one of the gajillion character arcs Oda's juggling. She ultimately guides Luffy to Crocodile, and round 3 commences. Oh, and Pell saves Alabasta from an impending bomb detonation by carrying it away into the sky. This seems to be a controversial topic. And guys, from Vivi's cries to a literal nuke almost engulfing both sides, nothing is capturing the attention of the battlefield. Everyone continues fighting, seemingly in a feral trance. Having run out of water, Luffy's relying on his own blood to land hits on Crocodile. This is badass, and I've never seen so many sequential panels of Luffy with such a cold-blooded expression. And I know these are fictional characters, so they can have as much stamina as narratively demanded, but I feel Oda walked this perfect tightrope of letting Luffy exceed human limits, but not to the point it's just pure fantasy, if that makes any sense. It was really captivating to read, even when he's slashed by Crocodile's lethal poison, just refusing to fall down and releasing an endless flurry of punches, eventually blasting Crocodile into the air. As Crocodile loses consciousness, the sandstorm abruptly clears, followed by a pitter-patter that freezes the entire battlefield. It's rain. A hush captures the plaza, and Vivi's voice is finally heard. This was so good! All ears turn to Vivi, and with help from Koza, King Cobra, and other victims of Baroque Works, everything becomes clear. It almost feels like both sides lost at this moment, but King Cobra urges everyone to push forward into the future, and the Civil War of Alabasta comes to a close. Going into this saga, I couldn't have even guessed the grandness and scale that Alabasta would deliver. This climax was so perfectly orchestrated and just made me jittery thinking like, I've barely scratched the surface of this series and it's just bound to somehow keep getting bigger and better. Now I'm not going to spend too much time on the epilogue, but the Straw Hats get their saga-ending banquet and the light charming tone was a great change of pace after such a devastating battle. We get some great panels of the country enjoying rain and some resolution between characters, some really needed. We get some new bounties. Let's go Zoro. And in classic fashion, the government wants to cover up that a pirate saved Alabasta and pin the honor to Smoker with a medal ceremony. And Smoker, of course, kindly refuses. It's really weird to leave Vivi behind though, but that goodbye while the Straw Hats were being chased away by Marines was so perfect. How the crew couldn't say their farewells because otherwise the nearby Marines would know that Princess was affiliated with pirates. And so instead, we get this. Yeah, so I was showing this scene when I finished Alabasta and damn it Oda, can you just leave my tear ducts alone? Oh, and we get some insight here on how Luffy escaped the collapsing tomb and survived Crocodile's poison. For some reason again, Miss All Sunday, or Nico Robin, saves Luffy by giving King Cobra the antidote to feed to Luffy. Likely because of the whole people whose name is D thing? Oh, and I knew the Straw Hats would eventually get a black-haired female crew member, but I didn't connect those dots to her until she was already on the ship. So yeah, new crew member. It seems she's been hopping different organizations to evade the government since she was a child. And I guess for the meantime, she's gonna take refuge with the Straw Hats. I feel her time here will be a little different though. What a saga. So I had some back and forth for which saga was better, but I ultimately feel Alabasta Saga is One Piece at its peak so far. Although my favorite quality of East Blue was its pace and its semi-episodic nature, I had an itch for a larger interconnected story, and Alabasta absolutely delivered. But much like Island Park, Alabasta seems to be another measure for readers testing the waters of the series, and I'm giving it an A+. Somehow, I'm even more excited to catch up to the series than I was at the end of my prior video. So yeah, I'll keep chipping away at this series, and in the meantime, I'll hopefully catch you again in the next video. Thank you so much for watching my second One Piece video. I definitely went more of a storytelling route this time around, but yeah, I just wanted to talk a lot about the content, and I didn't want anyone to feel like I was just brushing past things or not appreciating them. I still did brush past a lot though. This was a beast of a saga. And I felt not going beat by beat at times made my points nonsensical or something. So yeah, Smoker climbed up my favorite characters list and Sanji just missed the cut. I didn't talk about a lot of Sanji's big brain moments, but don't worry, I appreciated it. There's just so many characters to pick from, a top 5 list is just pretty tough. And yeah, Alabasta at number 1 and I slid Drum Island in at 4. I almost considered Little Garden at 5, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of Logtown. These videos take a long time to make, so please like and subscribe if you happen to enjoy. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and cheers.